a drop in their primary cost of input, which means if you're looking for that pay rise or anything else you're dreaming about, a bonus, that is highly unlikely. Now, before we get to Kiplimo, Kigen, what do you, every time you hear that headline, every time we get that glimpse into the statistics, what runs through your financial focus mind?
Propaganda! Yote ni propaganda. It is all propaganda. You are cooking the numbers and the figures because they are based on nothing. Those were the words of Francis Atwoli, who's the SecGen of Kotu, not my words.
I like the way we do that, huh? We just quote people.
Me, I'm quoting Atwoli and what he said. And Mr. Keegan here will tell us the truth in the numbers that they are going to be launching tomorrow, lest you're labeled a propagandist and someone who's fished their numbers from up in the air.
So once again, let me extend a warm welcome to the man who's laughing just there behind the mic, Kiplimo Keegan, once again, Head of Policy Research and Advocacy, Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and he knows his stuff. So first and foremost, welcome, my brother. Hope the year is treating you pretty decent. Happy New Month.
Happy New Month. Thank you, Chico. Always a pleasure to be here at Capital. This is my second time. Always a delight to be here. The month is taking me well. Pretty busy start of the year. And I know maybe for some of our listeners who might not really know what the chamber is, maybe just a peek into that.
Please.
The Chamber of Commerce is the longest serving independent voice of the private sector. And we essentially do three things. One is we provide markets to our members, access to markets through the different trade missions that we do, taking business people to other markets, the expos that we have, an opportunity for our members to showcase their products. The second thing that we do, where I actually sit myself, is in advocacy.
Yeah.
We are solving the challenges that private sector has. The private, member-specific challenges, a challenge that a member might have, a business, whether it's, with a regulator, KRA, CABS, or other business, then we help support those challenges. And then the third thing is we offer the ordinary certificate of origin. So when you want to export a product from Kenya to outside, then you need that document to authenticate that indeed this product is coming from Kenya. So that is, in a nutshell, that's what we do. In the barometer, the inspiration of the barometer report is, first, it's a forward-looking report. So it measures the expectations of businesses in a period that's to come. The idea behind this is, as private sector, we want to be proactive. So a lot of the things that you'll see today is what is going to happen during the year. Mm-hmm. So even as we engage government, we're telling them, these are the challenges that private sector expect this year. So let's fix them, before we get there in the first place. We've been doing it quarterly, but this time we've switched it up a bit because we're at the start of the year. Mm-hmm. We've gone ahead and asked businesses, what are you thinking will happen in this year? And we've spoken to close to 2,000 businesses.
1,981 businesses across 47 counties.
Absolutely. We are present in all the 47 counties through our county chapters. So we have that grassroots and countrywide presence. So we were collecting data across the counties. And in fact, during the report tomorrow, you'll be able to see we got what data from what counties and so on and so forth. One thing to make mention of is that majority of our respondents are actually small and medium enterprises, businesses, MSMEs. Now, this is actually consistent with, one, the demographic of our economy. Majority of businesses in Kenya are actually small. Yeah. And that's one thing that policymakers sometimes tend to forget. In fact, even 80% of our membership portfolio at the chamber is actually small businesses. And then, so this is what we ask them, what do you expect in terms of revenue? Are you expecting your revenue to grow? We asked them, 65% said that they're expecting their revenue to grow. Though one thing to mention is that those who said no were more compared to Q2, Q3, and Q4. We then went ahead and asked them, are you expecting to hire in this 2025? Then 60% said no, which is an increase compared to the previous quarters.
I want to ask you something there, because the Federation of Kenya Employers did come out and say that in the year 2023, we had a record number, 5,500 Kenyans lost jobs. The propaganda that Kotu SecGen was, of course, now speaking about, but these are numbers based on fact. So when we see numbers coming from KNCCI saying that 60% of majority of businesses are not looking to hire in this year and are expected to grow their workforce size it's a very pessimistic outlook, yes. And this is, of course, you've done the research, you're head of research, you've done the research, so it's based on fact.
Correct.
So how do we marry what is coming from FKE, what Kotu is saying, and what KNCCI is saying, given that you also feed these numbers into government?
Correct. In fact, one of the reasons why we came up with the barometer is so that we could have private sector data. A lot of the times, you have data from CBK, you have data from KNBS, but we also need alternative private sector data, and this is what it provides. On the issue of workforce size, it is a convergence of a number of factors. One of them is actually the statutory deductions. When you've got now Shivsha, as a deduction, you've got affordable housing, now you've got NSSF also being increased.
6%.
In all this, one thing is constant: the employer has to match the contribution. Then what does that then reflect to your numbers as a business? Is that you have to pay more to keep your employees. Now, if things are not working well on the sales side, where revenue is not coming in as you need to, and expenses are increasing, what options do you have? You gotta let people go.
Wage bill.
Absolutely.
And this is the thing. We've turned and said this time and again, whether it's businesses or etc., when it comes to payment, when it comes to the final cost, whether you're selling something or not, the commodity, the final cost will always be borne by the customer, and in this case, the employee.
Correct. Absolutely. And even if you look at matters taxation as well, and even the general growth of businesses, because we're asking, and this survey went out to both members and non-members of the Chamber of Commerce. And we would ask them, obviously, looking at 2024, what do you think 2025 is going to be like? And one of the key challenges that were there in 2024 was actually access to affordable capital. And one of the other questions that we asked businesses in this barometer is that, what are your key needs for 2025? What are the things that you want? And top of the chart was affordable access to affordable credit. I mean, you know how the interest rate was playing about last year. So then it becomes very expensive to borrow, to also try and expand the business, maybe hire more people. And I mean, the Central Bank Monetary Policy Committee meets on 5th of February.
Yes, they're supposed to meet this week.
The expectations is that, we've been able to take care of our inflation. I mean, the headline inflation from the recent numbers is at about 3.3%. So as private sector, we're expecting that they are going to drop the lending rate, further from the current 11.25%.
Yeah, I know that's the expectation, but what's the reality over the course of time in the past? Does that actually happen?
Yes, they have been reducing interest rates, and I mean, this has been the trend across all central banks and federal reserves across the world. Of course, many people always looking at the US to see if they're going to drop the rates, and they follow suit. But the fundamentals, as they speak, we've been able to take care of our inflation, and the reason why it's called quantitative easing, it's a game of easing and tightening, and this is the time to really ease, because we've got to let the private sector grow, so that government can obviously collect more revenue.
But the CBK in a drop lending rates, and then
the banks are not doing it.
We were discussing that, how it was going the opposite direction, and when they finally decided to drop, it was almost negligible. How then does that affect the private sector?
It is a serious concern, and we've got members who are bankers, and we have these conversations a lot of time, even with the Bankers Association. But one thing to also note is that capital is a game of time. The capital that if today I get your savings at a particular percentage, right, because you give to the bank so that the bank can give to someone else, then I cannot, if I took your savings, the savings that you gave me, let's say in August of last year, and I'm still holding it, or I held it as of December, then the amount in which I will give it at, there's a lag period before we get to that CBK lending rate standard plus margin.
You're not a banker, and it would be very unfair of me to throw this at you, but it's burning in my chest that whenever interest rates go up, the transmission signal is almost very instant. The banks are very quick to revise those rates. You get an SMS. If you're a business, you're told your loan has been revised to this much. But when the reverse happens, we don't see it. And we start seeing justifications like those ones where, we have to cushion ourselves because we have all of these facilities that blah, blah. I mean, it's a narrative that we've become very well accustomed to, which is very unfair. Now, speaking of numbers, because you're a numbers guy, and I wanted to make sense of, you're talking about inflation being at 3%, and that's what came from KNBS as of Q4. last year. And this data, of course, has been challenged a little bit because it's compounded all of the elements that would go into calculating percentages when it comes to inflation, correct? But we've not taken into account things like food, fuel, that should be separate when calculating that. So we do not get a realistic figure when it comes to inflation. That we're saying 3%, but realistically, it's not 3% because you're not looking at the direct consumer cost. So are you using this same data from KNBS for the barometer report?
Not really. We don't measure inflation ourselves, and I mean, with time we'll be able to measure inflation. I would love for us to get there. But you've mentioned a very important point. There is, for some of our listeners who might not know this, there's something called core inflation. Now, core inflation takes in food and fuel, right? Fuel is a very important component in the cost of doing business. Then what CBK has done is that they've been able, since the year began, they've been able to marry their numbers together with what KNBS issues, so that we have both food, non-food, fuel, have everything into one to form what is called the headline inflation. And I mean, we were giving feedback to that. But something also important to note is that inflation is a rate. So it does not mean that prices are not going up. It's just that they are going up at a slower rate than, the 9% that we were having. It's just the prices went up by 3%. But allow me to just go back a little bit on a very important point that you mentioned on access to capital and the cost of that with banks. I think it would be unjust for us to have this conversation if we do not mention the arm of government in this. The government is, right now they're fighting with the private sector for credit locally. And when there's issuance of infrastructure bonds, IFBs, at 14, 15, now I think they're about 14, 15%, and banks would obviously lend to them. So how do we expect bankers to lower when the government is offering that tenor tax free? One of the items that we've seen, and we continue to submit to government on this, is that let's borrow outside if you need to, but borrowing domestically, we are competing with the private sector for credit. In the budget policy statement that was issued recently, that's going to speak about the financial year 2025-2026, government wants to borrow about 540 billion locally. This is an increase of about 130 billion. Then that means that they're going to increase what they're going to borrow locally, which means that private sector, we get little credit, we get little opportunity to grow.
It's crazy. Here's something I want to double back on. You said, and the report actually indicates that most businesses are optimistic about growing their revenue in 2025. Though, put that into perspective, because they're more optimistic, but not as optimistic as 2024. That didn't pan out very well, did it? In fact, the majority of the businesses sampled, 65% of them, remain optimistic about the growth of their revenues come 2025. They're less optimistic compared to last 2 quarters of 2024. Marry those two for me.
Correct. That's a good question, Chico. Now, we measure in quarters. So we measured businesses are the respondents who said no. More than compared to Q4 and Q3, our measurements then. Now, one important thing to note here is that there is optimism and then there is reality. So there are certain realities which come during the year or during a specific time that then goes ahead, that goes ahead to contrast that pessimism, that optimism. Now, one of the reasons is in Q2, when we had the floods, and a lot of businesses were optimistic about that. Then later on, that reality of the floods quashed that. The other example is, and I mean, this is one of the items that private sector are actually watching this year, is the political situation.
Correct.
We, in our issuance of certificate of origin, we were analyzing our numbers last year, and we saw the year where the month when we issued the least certificates of origin, which means there was least export activity, was in June because of maandamano. So this is one of the items that we are watching out for as private sector, that we need political stability this year. Now, one of the items that we've actually noted is that just businesses are run by humans, and they would love to be optimistic, particularly on the revenue one. So that is why you see that optimism. And I mean, we really hope as the private sector, that then things are going to be better. Government's gonna listen to us more, in that the optimism will in fact even grow, because that is really the goal.
I'll tell you what, we will be back to speak to Kipripo Kigen about this further, because we also want to pick his mind on the situation of these businesses saying that, hey, listen, we don't think we'll be hiring much in 2025, which affects you and I directly. We want to also talk about the expected high cost of production, not to mention the decisions, as he's pointed out, we always wait for the U.S. to do something and then we react. The decision by Trump to kill off a lot of avenues in which the revenue, the taxpayer money from the US of A, think about Uhuru and what he said, is bleeding out. Those are things that will be answered over the course of time by Kigen, and we'll be right back, because that is quite the conversation. Sports news is coming up first in just a bit, by the way, so stick around. This is Capital in the Morning with Philaris, myself Chico, and our man from the KNCCI, Kigen.
Mbasha 2025 WRC Safari Rally imekuja na zawadi kutoka KCB, revisha for school fees, ngata, Valentine's dinner na grand prize ya ploti vipingo. Deposit ama save kwa KCB Gold Savings Account from today to 30th April for a chance to win. Revisha na 2025 WRC Safari Rally and feel the row. Visit any KCB branch or kcbgroup.com. KCB, for people, for better. Regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya.
For the All Request Lunch Hour each and every day on the Fuse 984, I, Ann Moira, will be giving you a pizza of your choice. Wow! Craving seafood pizza, or maybe even something meaty, vegetarian, gluten-free? The Green Table Pizza, located at the Lavington Corner Mall, got you covered. Here's what you have to do. 1. Follow the Green Table Pizza and check out the menu on their social media. 2. Think about the pizza you're craving. And 3. Tune into Capsule FM from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. to find out what game of the day is going to be played. And number 4, win and collect your pizza on the same day, or a voucher that lasts 1 month. Terms and conditions apply.
This is Capital in the Morning Breakfast Show.
Take me by the hand, show me the way I can go. Take me by the hand, show me the way.
Capital Traffic and Travel.
If you're on the roads, let us know what's going on in case you spot any incidents or accidents. 0701984984 or at 984 in the morning, hashtag drive in, double N at the end. If you're on Eastern Bypass, again, I ask, what's going on that side? Utawala Pipeline area coming onto North Airport Road. Delays of 20 minutes. If you're on Kiambu Road, coming towards DCI, joining Muthaiga and Thika Road, delays of 6 minutes. And if you're on Outer Ring Road, you can expect delays of up to 7 minutes. And that's as you approach all stops. Chico? Nothing on your end? It's okay.
My end?
Capital Traffic and Travel. Capital Sports Update, where sports is taken seriously.
How about we jump into my end? No pun intended. Czech Republic giant Slavia Prague yesterday haven't announced the signing of Harambe Stars midfielder Timothy Babu Oma from Swedish side Elfsborg. Oma actually signed a 4.5-year contract, which will run until June 2029. So job secure, unlike local businesses. He is expected to join up with his teammates immediately. Prague are not just some random team. They're currently leading their domestic league with 50 points from 19 matches, 7 ahead of the second-placed Victoria Pletzen. Meanwhile, Gor Mahia interim head coach Zedekiah Zico Otieno, well, he was quite unaware of the impending appointment of Croatian Sinisa Mihic as his replacement. Zico, in fact, says he has not received anything, not a single word of the same from the club chair or the CEO.
Okay, for now I've not been told anything, so it's very difficult for me to answer that question. The right person to answer is the CEO and the chairman.
Yeah, and they're not saying anything. In fact, if you think the silence is just about Zede, you're wrong. Ask Singida. They want their money back, seeing as Gore sold them a player who didn't want to come there. But hey, Kenya for you. Tanzanians, yeah, welcome to the 254. Huku biashara yetu, biashara de biashara. That's how the song goes, or something like that. Anyway, ignore me. Former Kogalo fullback, who is now the coach, has been coaching the club since the sacking of Brazilian Leo Neiva, which happened in November last year. Now, football matters. Arsenal made a huge statement of title intent when they thrashed English Premier League champions Manchester City 5-1. No, it's not a typo. No, you didn't mishear me. It was 5-1 at the Emirates last night. In fact, Martin Odegaard, Captain Fantastic, scored early in the first half, but Erling Haaland equalized in the second before the Gunners ran wild. Talk about wild thoughts, like Rihanna was in the stadium. Goals coming in from Thomas Partey, Miles Lewis-Kelly, and of course Kai Havertz, who missed. And then on comes Ethan Nwaneri, and boom, there goes number 5. The win marked the first time in 22 years that Arsenal have beaten City by more than 2 goals. In fact, 4 goals. More than that, it was 5. In case you didn't watch the match, I have a summary for you. Manchester City wamelala juu kichapo kilichopokewa pale Emirates, jamani, kinaitwa kichapo cha mbwa msikitini. Good morning.
Capital Sports Update. Up-to-the-minute sports, where sports is taken seriously. Hashtag appoint IEBC now.
Are you ready for this? Yeah. Whenever I got no money, she is still my honey. And there is no reason to be funny, cause I say that. I don't care what you say, but you can say, girl. Keep on saying your thing, yeah. And I don't care what you do, but you can do, girl. Keep on doing your thing, yeah. And I don't care what you shake, but you can shake, girl. You have my head to spin, yeah. And I don't care what you kiss, but you can kiss, girl. You have this word to sing, that people keep on telling me that you're here to stay, yeah. But I keep on telling them that you will go away. Cause why? Two wrongs can't make no right. Now, ain't nothing wrong with a good old fight.
It's
yeah.
alright if you feel it, boy.
Feeling.
You can feel this feeling all around the world.
Zaga, zaga, zaga.
It's okay
Ooh, nah, nah.
if you feel it. Everything and everybody. Boy, let's just have a party, me and you.
Y'all out of your mouth, don't call me damn name. Instead of bring me joy, you brought me pay. Now I really know what is the game. Bust your brain, blood for stay. Sometimes I really thought your love was so true. Cried on my shoulder, but not all too. Now I really know what just to do. Forget you too. You and your crew, people keep on telling me your love is here to stay. Yeah. But I keep on telling them that you will go away. Cause why? Two wrongs can't make no right. Now, ain't nothing wrong with a good old fight.
It's
Yeah,
alright
it's alright now.
if you feel it, boy.
Zaga, zaga, zaga.
You can feel this feeling all around the world.
Come on, Jill.
It's okay
It's okay.
if you feel it.
Ooh, nah, nah.
Everything and everybody. Boy, let's just have a party, me and
What?
you.
Whenever I got no money, she is still my honey. Without any clothes or jewelry, she is still my honey. But you little cars and loves, I almost lose my honey. Open your heart, girl, and let me back in, yeah. And you be my queen, and now forever your king. Yeah, 'cause two wrongs can't make no right.
It's alright
It's alright.
if you feel it.
The sounds of Beanie Man featuring Janet Jackson with Feel It Boy playing right here on Capital in the Morning with Philaris and Chico. And we are joined by Kiplimo Kigen, who is from the KNCCI. Beanie Man saying, whenever I have no money, she is still my honey. Do you have a woman who will remain faithful when you don't have money? Because we all go broke, unless, of course, you're Sudi.
Manyumba tunaishi ina shida yenu. Hospitali tunaenda ina shida yenu. Alafu mimi badala ya kukusaidia nitafute shilingi 500 nikupatie upiganishe na mwingine. Hiyo ni haki kweli? Hiyo ni haki kweli? Wewe unafikiria hata mimi nikikasirika sasa niwaambie mpange laini niwape 2,200 nitawapea nyinyi wote. Nasikia?
And you're talking about businesses not having enough capital, looking for more capital? Come on, yo.
I think we need
Pangeni
to speak
line.
to Sudi to start
Pangeni
loaning
line.
business owners money.
If we had 500 people there, then he's talking about Pangeni Mlolongo, I will quickly, easily, at least 500 people, dish out 1 million shillings. Kwani iko nini?
What is a million?
Aye, we wear shirts for 200,000, bwana. We have
What is
watches that are
money?
million or mera.
What is
What
money?
is money?
What is money?
Beanie Man. Hey, shh.
Twa
This
umaskini
is
hapa.
the kind of, this kind of rhetoric and type of and appearances by, government leaders is what makes some part of private sector not feel like wanting to pay taxes. Even when it comes to this conversation of formalizing the informal sector, why don't we bring in the informal sector, register them and have them pay taxes formally? But one of the biggest hindrances is they see this kind of rhetoric and then they're like, okay, so if I'm going to pay this, then I'm just financing,
lifestyle.
Chico's Patek Philippe.
Yeah.
Hey, I love that watch, by the way. I just can't afford it. Man, I love Kiplimo. Oh my goodness. Well, if you don't know him, it's Kiplimo Kigen. He's from the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We were talking about, I heard us talk about Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. I call them KNBS.
BS.
I leave it right there. BS is separate on its own, but he is not from there. He's from KNCCI, and he is the head of policy, research, and advocacy. And they did a report which is coming out tomorrow officially, but you get the insight right here on Capital in the Morning morning with Philarius and myself. Keegan, let's just do a quick recap, because I know there's a very interesting question from Philarius we'll get to. But two things I want you to tackle at the same time. We're hearing businesses say from that report that, listen, we will not be hiring. And at the same time, listen, the cost of production, we expect it to just shoot up. Marry those two and let us understand what implication it will have on mimi, ule mama mboga na mtu wa bodaboda wa ukweli ambaye anajaribu kufungua biashara.
Thank you, Chico. One of the things that we need to acknowledge is that the cost of labor is obviously a factor of production and a cost of production. And a lot in Kenya, we talk about, our competitiveness in as far as the cost of production is concerned. You'll see a lot of comparisons with other countries, China being the one of the main countries. But 55% of the businesses we talked to say that they're not expecting their cost of production, the cost of primary inputs to go down. This means that their cost of production is going to go up in 2025. Now, when you juxtapose this across the sectors, we see that manufacturing, transport, these are some of the sectors that are going to see one of the, are expecting in huge numbers the cost of production to actually increase. Now, we ask them, why do you expect your cost of inputs to increase if you say that? And the top item that came out was high taxes, levies, and unfavorable government policies. Now, if you look at for example, the tax laws amendment bill that was passed, which increased the railway development levy from 1.5% to 2%, any product that comes into Kenya has to pay an RDL, the railway development levy. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine who works on the cargo side of Kenya Airways, and they also pay RDL cargo that comes in, which obviously was quite funny. I mean, I don't see railway there. But, apart from that, besides the point, that increase, you can see it's already being reflected here in this barometer. A law that came into operation in December, you can see it is already reflected here. Now, it also brings the bigger conversation about taxes, because that is the main reason why business people are expecting cost of production to increase. One of our key submissions to the government, and we have numerous engagements with them, is let's take a break from the finance bill. The tax laws amendment bill was a finance bill in essence, because the finance bill 2024 never saw the light of day.
Yeah, it was rejected.
If the new finance bill is going to come in at around late April, in May, that's going to be 2 finance bills in a span of 6 months.
6 months.
One of our biggest concerns at the moment is the predictability of the tax regime in Kenya. And that is why we even have a national tax policy. But it's one thing to have the policy, and it's another thing to implement it, as we see at the moment.
I love the way he just paints that picture so seamlessly and makes you understand what's actually going on the ground. And also keeping in mind, because we were talking about this off air as we're listening to the music, you were talking about how the U.S., and we alluded to coming to this, had been their policies, their moves, their steps will always have a ripple effect. I've heard, and we've been reading up on the U.S. aid situation in which they are getting backlash. In fact, a lot of Americans are like, no, we're done with this. Now, it's really good for America, what Trump is doing. It is good for America. Let's be very honest. They are the taxpayers. They want to use their money to improve their country. Simple and plain. But also in the same breath, it's very realistic that is affecting people here. There are people who are doing work in diversity. That job is gone. Trump is not about that. So take that off. The Biden administration was pumping in a lot of cash, transgender, sex change, identification, them, that, whatever you identify as. Now it's almost like we have been told by Trump, you identify as either a Kenyan or you're poor. Those are the two identification genders you cannot write. This U.S. aid situation is affecting people I know employed here in Nairobi, not directly by U.S. aid. That is not the case, but the contractors who have seen it dry up. How is that then, and the policies of the U.S. going to affect local businesses? Because CMC, you've seen, they pulled out. I won't even ask you about the international organizations, but local businesses, what kind of backlash should we expect, or are we foreseeing?
That's a great question, Chico. Now, first of all, with the U.S. aid, they have been doing, we've partnered with them as private sector previously, and they've been able to do some amazing work in supporting MSMEs, whether it's access to markets, whether it's capacity building to train them on how, better strategies to run businesses and so on and so forth. So that is something that we had seen that was a really good thing. But aside from that, the US is the largest economy in the world and the wealthiest country. And when you are the biggest economy in the world, well, you can flex, Chico.
Yeah.
You turn things to your side, to your direction.
Correct.
And I don't think anyone would really blame Trump for being pro-America. I mean, he was elected by Americans. But on the issue of aid, I think myself, and this is my own opinion, not really the chamber,
Yeah.
I am not a big fan of aid. And the whole relationship of, the southern part of the world and aid. I think trade and commerce is a way better alternative than aid, which is obviously another bigger debate. But for the Kenyan context, one of the key items that the private sector is watching with the United States government is the renewal of AGOA. Now, AGOA is an African program that supports African countries to export products to the US. Without any tariff, without any quotas, obviously depending on the type of products. Now, Kenya, we've been big on textile, right? You go to EPZ in Athi River and all those places. Now, AGOA is expiring in 2025. But then, because of the elections last year, I think the United States was a bit distracted and that was not a priority. Now, we don't know. There's a bit of uncertainty. But aside from that, during the first administration of President Trump, the US and Kenya were in conversations for a comprehensive economic partnership agreement. Not just an AGOA, but a completely exhaustive trade agreement, like the one that we
Kenya
just
and
signed
the
with the UAE. Now, when the Biden administration came to office, they were not a big fan of that. Now, we are waiting to see. Will Trump revive that? Because for us, that would be even better than AGOA. It would go further than that.
Correct.
The only country that has an economic partnership agreement with the US is only Morocco. Only one country in Africa. Hope Kenya will be the second.
We can only hope. And, the uncertainty around AGOA paints to another uncertainty that we have within the region, and that's DRC. We really cannot speak matters trade, matters economy without looking at what is happening right next door. And Kenya plays a very crucial role when it comes to trade for Uganda, for Rwanda, for DRC, because they're landlocked countries. So a lot of the transit of goods and everything happens through Kenya. And of course, Kenya has tried being a mediator. We've really messed that up. I do not want to get into it. But from KNCCI's perspective, given that this report comes out literally when all of these things are happening in DRC, is there something that you can forecast to as far as businesses operating within the private sector? Because a lot of private sector businesses, be it logistics, whatever you can think about, plays within that space. There's Kenyan businesses that are operating within DRC. What are we looking at here?
First of all, geopolitics has always and still is a threat to businesses. In the last couple of years, we've dealt with Russia and Ukraine. We are actually still dealing with the issue with the Red Sea, the Houthis and so on and so forth, affecting the Suez Canal. This one is closer home.
Correct.
DRC is the most populous country in the EAC, and the 7th country to actually join the EAC. Now, a lot of Kenyan businesses have made significant investments in DRC. You've got bankers, you've got logistics companies, you've got businesses in the service sector, and Kenyans are really thriving, particularly in areas of Kivu, Goma, even all the way to Kinshasa. Eastern DRC is a key market for Kenya. Now, last week, I got in touch with our colleagues at the Chambers of Commerce in DRC. Things are not looking really good, but one of the things that we really hope for is that there is a faster, that we expedite the peace processes. And I mean, this is a call not just to the authorities in DRC, but also to the authorities in East Africa and also Southern Africa, them having forces there. So right now we are seeing a lot of disruption in trade routes. We've got our members who export fish all the way from Lake Turkana through into Uganda and into DRC. Right now, the fish can't go, because people have been displaced, people have been killed. So trade as it is. Business is unusual there, and we really hope that we can get to that closer than as possible. What I'm really looking forward to is to see the strength of the East African community in this particular case.
Is there an East African Chamber of Commerce, or we all operate independently?
Yes, there is an East African Chamber of Commerce that brings together these other chambers of commerce, and we work a lot together, particularly when it comes to issues of non-tariff barriers. Sometimes Ugandans just decide potatoes are not crossing Kenyan potatoes into Uganda. Then we have to speak also with the Chamber of Commerce on the other side, just as we are doing now with the Chambers of Commerce in DRC.
All right. So we know the report is officially coming out. It's being presented tomorrow. We have it, but we haven't managed to go through it. I'm sure, once again, like I said, Philaris will go through it, and tomorrow it'll be easy to break down. You need to come to Financial Focus, by the way, one of these fine days.
Absolutely.
You're very much welcome.
That would be very, very dope to have a listen to you, Ken, and Philaris on the show. It's tomorrow at 6:30. It's an unmissable one, and you want to listen in because it kind of paints a realistic picture for you. And this one is not the Mama Mboga kind of promises. No. This is just reality on the ground. So here's an opportunity for you, Kiplimo, because we haven't gone through this report. What do you think, 2 or 3 things that you would want us to keep an eye out for?
So one of the things is that this is an evolving report, and it keeps on growing, and we keep on getting feedback every quarter. In fact, for those who will be able to attend the launch tomorrow, on the back page of the report is a QR code where you can scan and give us feedback. We've been able to add 2 very interesting themes. One is women in business angle. So we asked, are you a women-owned business? If you say yes, then what kind of specific challenges are you facing? And you'll be able to see there even issues of discrimination are still there. You can see access to capital is a key thing there because of collateral and land ownership and so on and so forth. The second theme is climate change. We asked businesses, are you applying any climate mitigation or adaptation actions in your operations? 43% of them said yes, 43% said no, and the rest were unsure. But one of the things that stood out is that the lack of awareness. There's a knowledge gap there because this issue of climate sustainability to many businesses, particularly the small businesses who are majority of the respondents here, it feels a bit abstract. It's still in the air in a way. So there's need for a lot of work there to sensitize businesses on how they can be more sustainable. Lastly is I would really like to ask businesses that are not members of the chamber to come and become a member of the chamber so that we can support you in any challenges that you have. We can help you access markets within Kenya and outside Kenya. We work with 177 chambers of commerce across the world. So if you're looking to take a product outside Kenya, we're happy to support you with that. So you can check out our website, kenyachamber.or.ke, and all our social media platforms at Twitter at Kenya Chamber. And we obviously invite you tomorrow. Come and join us at Serena starting 7:30 a.m.
Most definitely, we will love to be there. We'll be on air, but we'll have our reporters there. Just finally, what word would you give to small businesses, the business industry in this country right now, considering everything you know from the report and the feedback you've gotten, and those, especially the young ones who are trying to get into business? Because we've seen the likes of Caliph Cairo, whether it's mismanagement or one thing or another, he is suffering. Young people coming into this country with business, it's not the easiest thing to do. What would you advise them ahead of the release of the report?
3 things. 1, have control of your finances. Put extra focus on your finances. If you need to hire more people, if you need to spend more time on finances, that is a key pillar. You gotta know your numbers. If someone asks you what was your operating profit for last quarter, what was your total costs for last month, you need to know your numbers, because if you don't track it, then you don't have control over it. The second item is digitize. Utilize technology. Access to markets is there with social media. You can even cut on your costs. You can even reduce on labor. You can become faster in production with technology. And third, join the Chamber of Commerce.
There we go. That is Kiplimo, who is from KNCCI, joining us here. Thank you very much once again for coming through. And we'll see you a third time on Financial Focus at one point. We will be keeping an eye on the report. Our website, which is capitalfm.co.ke, will definitely have that covered. You was nodding. I know. We were streaming, so yes, they could see you at the same time. We were streaming on our social media platforms. We'll be doing that tomorrow because we also have a very, very key conversation tomorrow. You don't want to miss out on that one. We say goodbye to Kiplimo, and if you're watching us, you can clearly see me like wave him away in your Unia Amunga Akai.